पुरस्ताद्भविता प्रतीत औदालकीरारुणिर्मत्प्रसृष्टः सुखं रात्रिश्शयिता वीतमन्युः त्वां दृशिवान् मृत्युमुखात् प्रमुक्तम् स्वर्गे लोके न भयं किञ्चनास्ति न तत्र त्वं न जरया बिभेति उभे तीर्त्वा अशनाया पिपासे शोकातिगो मोदते स्वर्गलोके सत्त्वमग्निं स्वर्ग्यमध्येषि मृत्यो प्रब्रोहितं श्रद्दधानाय मह्यम् स्वर्गलोका अमृतत्वं भजन्ते एतद्वितीयेन वृणे वरेण प्रते ब्रवीमि तदुमे निबोध स्वर्ग्यमग्निं नचिकेतः प्रजानन् अनन्तलोकाप्तिमथो प्रतिष्ठां विद्धि त्वमेतन्निहितं गुहायाम् लोकादिमग्निं तमुवाच तस्मै या इष्टकायावतीर्वा यथा वा स चापि तत्प्रत्यवदद्यथोक्तम् अथास्य मृत्युः पुनराहतुष्टः तमब्रवीत् प्रीयमाणो महात्मा वरं तवेहाद्य ददानि भूयः तवैव नाम्ना भवितायमग्निः शृङ्काञ्चे मामनेकरूपां गृहाण त्रिणाचिकेतस्त्रिभिरेत्यसन्धिं त्रिकर्मकृत्तरति जन्म मृत्यु ब्रह्मजज्ञं देवमीड्यं विदित्वा द्विचाय्ये मां शान्तिमत्यन्तमेति त्रिणाचिकेतस्त्रयमेतद्विदित्वा य एवं विद्वांश्चिनुते नाचिकेतं स मृत्युपाशान् पुरतः प्रणोद्य शोकातिगो मोदते स्वर्गलोके एष तेऽग्निर्नचिकेतः स्वर्ग्यो यमवृणीथा द्वितीयेन वरेण एतमग्निं तवेव प्रवक्षन्ति जनासः तृतीयं वरं नचिकेतो वृणीष्व।
हरि ओम। The 14th mantra, the epithets that is used to praise Agni, the fire ritual, Ananta Lokaptim. It is a means to the attainment of the eternal heaven. Prathishtham. It is the support of the universe. Nihitam Guhayam. Seated in the cavity of the heart. We already understood what does he mean by saying Yajna is the Virat, which is the support of the universe. It is that essential tool. Yajna is the essential principle, an action where everything folds back into Brahman, where it becomes a means to get to Brahman. We refer to the 3rd chapter of the Gita, the agricultural metaphor. And in the 4th chapter, the 12 yajnas, how you can convert. Remember, yajna has to be understood as nothing but an opportunity or a means to convert action into worship. Any action can be translated into worship. There's nothing called as divine actions and demoniac actions. There's nothing as spiritual and worldly. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what robe you put on. It doesn't matter what activity you're engaged in. It is an activity is performed based on your swadharma, based on your vasanas that you're born with. You can't do anything about it. So why are you worried of what you're doing now? If you have vasanas for business, you will do business. That becomes your swabhava, that becomes your swadharma. So why are you afraid of performing an action which is your own dharma? Be true to it. But while you're performing your dharma, when you introduce this wisdom into your life, you can convert that into worship. And that is where injecting of wisdom is injecting that spirit of yajna into your field of karma. That becomes karma yoga. When you inject the wisdom into your field of karma, the field of karma is determined by your vasanas. You have no choice there. But how you perform in the field of activity, that you have every choice. So spirituality is not determined by the field of activity. Spirituality is determined and defined by how you conduct yourself in your field of activity. Whatever be the field of activity, how you conduct yourself, how you operate, what is that spirit that you bring to that action? How do you perform that action? For what are you performing that action? And when that fundamental principle, for what am I performing that action, gets clarified, gets justified, and when there is that spirit of sacrifice, that spirit of service ingrained in every action, then you automatically are in the spiritual path. You automatically are spiritual, because such actions purify you of any impurities. No mala, there is no dirt associated in actions which are driven or performed with the spirit of yajna or sacrifice. It's such a profound subject. It's such a vast subject. It is such a phenomenal subject, the concept of yajna. The more you talk of it, the more you are drawn into it. It's a fascinating study. Now, in the 14th mantra, he says, Nihitam Guhaya, seated in the cavity of the heart. Remember, I didn't touch on that. In fact, this phrase, is one of the very famous phrases in the Upanishads, in the Shastras, where they often say, deep in the cavity of the heart, referring to something like deep in the recesses of the mountain, deep in your, which means it is the very core of your personality. Now, we are all intellectuals. We are taking a rational approach to the Shastras. We're trying to understand and instill the principle of Shastras in our lives through the Jnanam. So when he says the cavity of the heart, what is the core of the intellect? When he says seated in the cavity of the heart, which means it is the wisdom in your intellect. If intellect is the cave, the core of that cave is wisdom. So seated in the cavity of the heart means I am the wisdom of your intellect. Now, when you take a look at the Shastras purely from an intellectual perspective, perhaps this refers, or it is a very strong opinion by the Guru as a revolt to the strong ritual chain slavery in Hindu religion. So the text, as it were, is objecting to the slavery we all have got into in the name of religion. And Hindu religion is caught up, we are all slaves to that religiosity or the religious practices. You get into any religion, it's only rituals. But when you come to the spirituality, when you come to philosophy, there's no rituals. That's perhaps you must understand the fundamental difference between philosophy, which is spirituality, and perhaps religion. Therefore, even when there's a reference to the fire ritual, we drew out the philosophical kernel, the philosophical implication, what that fire means. So we should not get caught up in the rituals. Perform rather the rituals, understanding that they are mere symbols. If you have that understanding, you are very safe, that you don't get carried away by the various rituals that you are caught up in. And I tell you, it's very easy to dislodge another person. It's very easy to unsettle another person. And one of the, any area where you can unsettle the person is areas of attachment. If you're attached to money, and if I start talking terms of money to you, you will get very, if I'm trying to draw money from you, knowing if you're attached to money, it makes you uncomfortable. You will not associate with me. If you're attached to relationships, and if I were to tell you, be detached to that relationship, it unsettles you. If you're attached to name, and if I were to tell you, why are you getting so carried away by that name and fame that you're running behind, you will want to keep distance from me. Similarly, in spirituality, it's very easy to unsettle any one of you. Where are you permanently settled? You're very attached to rituals. You're attached to your religion that you're practicing. You may be practicing Hinduism, you may be practicing Islam, you may be practicing Christianity, you may be practicing Buddhism. You know, of all places, other day, I was as a witness at a jewelry store. The family had to do some minor things. So I said, okay, I went and I sat there. And after all that happened, my father, who was there in that store with us, he went up to do that final thing, and he said about me. And the person who is in charge, who's owner of the store, was very delighted to talk to me. He was very interested to talk to me. And not believe, for the next half an hour, we got into a conversation. Amidst all the people are knocking at his door to settle their purchases, and he's saying, a point came, he told, nobody will come into my chambers. Everybody shall wait, which is business for that man. He said, everybody will wait. And we were talking. And obviously I could notice, you know, they follow Jainism. And in one aspect, I could relate how he was so attached to his religion. I'm reminded of the context, I gave a backdrop. And then he said, when I was talking of all religions and how people are just caught up in that, then he said to me, what are you doing? I am teaching the Sanatana Dharma, the philosophical kernel of all religions, which has got nothing to do with any religion. Sanatana Dharma has got nothing to do with Hinduism. Sanatana Dharma has got nothing to do with Buddhism, has got nothing to do with Islam, nothing to do with any ism. All isms were born from the Sanatana Dharma. You take away all these so-called religions which have taken a precedence from the eternal teachings, where in the name of spirituality, you have developed a fanaticism to personalities. You have developed a fanaticism to a text. You have developed a fanaticism. You all are fanatics. The moment I get into a conversation with you, you only talk of a personality. The moment a conversation with you, you get into you are stuck to an ism, stuck to a branch of thought or a school of thought, just to liberate yourself from all kinds of bondages and just get into the pure philosophical kernel, is Sanatana Dharma, which has no name, no religion, no time, no era, no binding at all. So the whole purpose of you all to come into this knowledge is to liberate yourself from the shackles of slavery that you have bound yourself into in the name of spirituality. And it's very easy for me to unsettle you, which I would not. If the day I am fed up of you, I want to lose you, I'll unsettle you. Don't worry. I'm tired of seeing you. It's no good to you being associated with me. I will liberate you. Get out. Go. You're not needed. Not because I don't need you, because our association is not helping you. Why are you wasting your time? I liberate you from it. And very easy to unsettle you. Where? In your areas of your spiritual weakness is attachment to a name or a form. Sometimes it gets so suffocating. I also have a guru. I also practice a path, but I have not pounded my affinity of a guru to you. Have I pounded my guru onto you? Why are you stuck to personalities? I just can't understand. You're all slaves to personalities. If that man has attained moksha, so be it. It was his journey. Why are you being a slave to that man? Make it your own. Make that path your own. That dharma, that journey to a self is as much yours as it was theirs. How does that man make any more special to you than so many others who attain? Oh, I would follow. Okay, just for discussion's sake, if I say I follow X, you mean to say others all have not attained moksha? Others are all insignificant compared to that personality? What are you trying to? It's like, it's sickening if you develop attachment to my family. Oh, my children are the best. My children only are everything for me. My children and my grandchildren must be very well taken care of. How long can you hear that selfish attachment? Is it not sickening? Is it not Vijigupsa? Don't you feel that Vijigupsa? Vijigupsa is that, I don't know whether you can associate Vijigupsa. Whenever we refer to the word Vijigupsa, I'm referring to how my guru used to describe Vijigupsa. He says, it's a certain feeling that you get. And the feeling is, imagine if I were to invite you home and I offer you a fresh juice. It's something it has a different texture, it looks different, it smells funny. So you just, as a courtesy, yeah, sir, what are you giving? What I've done is I've actually collected sufficient pus from a leper's wound. Amitama, that expression says it all. I offer you a half a glass of pus from a leper's wound and I give you, say, please have it. And that very moment you will just shun it. Oh my God, what are you getting me into? That feeling of revulsiveness, disgust, that feeling of, there's no better word to put that Vijigupsa. That kind of, you can say abhorrism or some kind of revulsion or rejection or disgust is experienced by others when they see your selfishness. Who experiences? A person who is relatively unselfish can't stand selfishness of a person. I and my. Disgusting, I tell you. You want to keep distance from the thought of I and my. Even if I were to think of that I and my, I should feel a sense of disgust. Exactly the same spiritual disgust comes from people who are talking of being liberated, and in the name of spirituality, you're talking attachment. It is such a pity. We are not doing any justice to the Shastras. No justice. So if I take this seat, I must do justice to the Shastras. And Shastras don't talk of any attachment. No attachment. Any attachment is binding. Remember this. If you're attached to the material world, as the Ishavasya Upanishad says, you're in darkness. Oh, I am not attached, sir. You are attached to the spiritual world, you're in greater darkness. Andham tama pravishanti ye vidya mupasati. Andham tama. You are in greater darkness. The only good thing a wise man doesn't do is he doesn't unsettle the minds of the ignorant. He lets them be, gives them the time and the space for them to realize the folly in their actions. At best, I can generalize in a classroom like this, not pick each one of you, or having known you and understood you, I can't be personalized, and I would not. It's not my job. If you allow me to, I will. But since you don't allow me, I'll give you the freedom to and the space to live with your attachments. But all must go one day. Remember, Sanatana Dharma has no name, has no religion, has no cult, there is no movement, there is no personality, there is no ism, there is no time, there is no era. In fact, Sanatana Dharma has no definition. You give it a definition, you give it an identity, you make it an attachment. It has no definition. Sanatana Dharma is the very tattva of life. It's the very essence of life. Religion is being a slave to a personality, slave to an era, slave to an opinion, slave to a school of thought. I'm talking of gold and you're talking of ornaments. The tattva of ornament is gold. You're caught up in an ornament. Such a beautiful anklet, such a beautiful necklace, such a beautiful ring. You're caught up in a nama rupa. I'm talking of the tattva, which is the essence of gold. Gold has no name, no form, no nama rupa. Sanatana Dharma has no nama rupa. It is just knowledge of life and living, which is the essence of life. It is just like that ocean has no name and a form. Rivers have a name and a form. Ocean has no birth and death. Rivers have a birth and death. Ocean is there from the very beginning. Rivers are born, rivers will die. Why are you not able to see the bigger picture? You're not able to see the bigger picture. Why? You're caught up in some name, some form, and you find a reason to celebrate this Ratri, that Ratri. What Ratri? Huh? Every day, every name and form is just an image, a symbol. Don't get caught up in it. And don't get caught up in the rituals associated with it. A fanaticism even to the ritualistic practices. I tell you. I am a rebel. Let me tell you. If you tell me to follow it, I'll not do it. I don't want to be bound by customs and traditions. And yet I'm very much far more spiritual than others may think. I don't want to be bound. Don't be bound. You've got to be liberated. So perhaps there is a reference to that. When he says seated in the cavity of a heart, he's referring to that wisdom that you need to seek, not all these peripheral practices. So we painted a very profound picture of what the word fire means. But in the text, in the 15th mantra, the next mantra, there is a reference to the ritual, because that's what the Lord is talking. So once we get into the next verse, you'll understand perhaps the contrast to the mere ritual vis-a-vis the deeper philosophical implication. Now here, the objective is not to denounce. I'm not denouncing, please. Those who have known me or related to me, to the works, they said, "Sir, why are you doing this? Why are you doing what?" Next month, I think the 7th of April, we would be all be engaged in performing a yajna, a physical yajna, where we are celebrating the anniversary of the Wisdom Institution or Wisdom Institute facility. So those of you who want to be a part of that ritual, yes, it is a very ancient Vedic ritual. So again, that question I was asked was, again you're doing the ritual? 2 years ago we did it. I'm doing it again. The least I would like to do is at least once a year we perform the ritual. So it's not, I'm not someone against it. But I'm only trying to tell, let's draw the essence sort of and live it, not just performing the ritual once in a year or once in a quarter or once a month and then forget about it. Every action. How many actions are you performing every day? Do you have a count? Imagine every action you perform in the very same spirit of yajna, then thinking of the ritual whenever you perform. Look at that. The sheer disparity of it. So how you can live a life of yajna vis-a-vis sitting and performing a yajna as a yajamanaha? That is not the objective. The objective is to you become a symbol of yajna. That's the objective. That's the whole impetus you need to draw from this. The whole philosophy that you draw is how you become a symbol of yajna. But however, you're all invited, India and abroad. Please take that journey, if you can, to be a part of that yajna, 7th of April. Mantra 15, please.
लोकादिमग्निं तमुवाच तस्मै या इष्टकायावतीर्वा यथा वा स चापि तत्प्रत्यवदद्यथोक्तम् अथास्य मृत्युः पुनराहतुष्टः.
So having praised the fire ritual, Lord Yama continues. So Lord Yama explained to him, which is Nachiketa, that fire ritual, which is the very source of the worlds. What did he explain? What type of bricks? Ishtakaha. Yavati Ishtakaha. Ishtaka means the bricks. How many and how are they to be placed? And he, Nachiketa, repeated back as explained. Pratyavadat Yathoktam. Nachiketa repeated. Then Yama was pleased at this and said again, continues into the next mantra. So here, the reference is that Lord Yama taught the ritual to Nachiketa. And what Nachiketa did, he received it with a photogenic mind. Whatever was said, he received it. And it is the tradition of the Shastras. It is the tradition in the ancient teaching that the student is asked to repeat whatever is taught by the Guru, just to ensure whether the student has understood the lesson. ensure that the student has understood the instructions of the Guru. And here, in this particular mantra, you see Nachiketa repeated, and he stood to test. He passed the test in such perfection that Yama was so pleased. Actually, he gave 2 additional boons, which are in the next mantra. So the teacher must be pleased by the student, not annoyed by that student, by the student. I also have so-called students. I don't know whether they please me or annoys me. I don't know. I don't want to have any comment. SR Garu, I have no comments, sir, here. I know you read my mind well, but I will just leave it at that. So you also holding your comments, sir?
No, not holding the comments, Guruji, because morning itself you shook up so strongly on this Ratra Dharma. I think after a long time I could able to understand the real meaning of Sanatana Dharma, Guruji. What I mean to say, the spirit of word, what we keep talking. We've been talking for just sake of, like whomever asked, I said, I'm going to the classes of Sanatana Dharma. Now, how you say that it doesn't have a religion, doesn't have, it's more about a rationality of how to, the real, the what you call kernel, a real purpose of a Sanatana Dharma, essence is been understood there.
Very profound. If you understand that, we're very profound. In fact, you should tell people, I'm going to the Sanatana Dharma class to lose my identity.
Yeah.
To get over my bondages, to just be a liberal thinker of life and living, not be a slave to any knowledge. Don't be a slave to this also. Question everything.
And as you rightly said, that 99% of our time is lost in these rituals. In fact, yesterday's programs which were there, in fact, I glanced it and just switched off. The amount of time, energy, and resources are being wasted. I said, why they can't sit in the home and pray? You need to go all the way and create an hangama. And so-called the gurus, I don't want to name that, and they created a new god name also, which has not been existing anywhere in that. Like they created a temple with that. And the people are so fanatically got caught into that.
It's very easy to get into that. It's easy to gain traction for that. It's difficult to gain traction for this. But this is the truth. This is the truth. It's not again being dismissive. It's in fact, we have to be all inclusive. You know, take them from there to the higher. But if you just give what they're comfortable with, that is not going to help them.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Jay. So the details to prepare the Homakund, which is the Agnicharya Prakriya. So as you understand, this is the Jnana Kanda. There is a difference of the Jnana Kanda to the Karma Kanda. So since this is a Jnana Kanda, in the mantra, there is a mere enumeration of certain subheadings. There's a mere enumeration of certain aspects which go into the ritual. If you get into the Karma Kanda, that you can independently study, or some of you may be proficient in it. It is explained in detail. The detail, which I will perhaps give you what detail some of them get into, or it is got into when you perform the field for yajna. In fact, it is said that in ancient Indian traditional mathematics, including geometry, they were developed because keeping the Homakund in mind. So the Indian traditional mathematics, including geometry, was actually developed only for Homakund. So it is that scientific. Now let's get a glimpse into the Karma Kanda, not the Jnana Kanda. Jnana Kanda, I've mentioned it. But just to get a glimpse into the Karma Kanda, rituals of fire worship. As there's a mention, what type of bricks have to be bought. It's not something you buy from the market. Huh? It has to be prepared. What type of bricks? What mud should be used to prepare the bricks? When do you bring them for the ritual? What mantra is to be chanted while the big bricks are being brought for the preparation of the kund? What is the shape and dimension of each brick? What mantra is chanted while each brick is being placed? Which devata or god is invoked in each brick? How the brick should be named? How many bricks are to be made for that particular ritual? Where the priest must sit, where the yajamana, who is the performer of that ritual, to sit, at what height they must sit, and so on and so on and so on. Endless details people get into for the performance of the ritual. I'm not even giving the minute detail, but tell me what kind of mud, what is the shape of the brick, how many bricks, which mantra is to be chanted, what brick is being given a particular name, and so on, what time you perform the ritual. It goes into such minute detail. That is the aspect of karma kanda. Now, how do you decode the very same ritual into jnana kanda? There are two things. Karma kanda is the mere ritual. It is also scientifically done. We are not denouncing it. It is also done scientifically. But then we are only drawing the deeper philosophical significance. I can't be carrying the bricks on my back and keep putting a yajna wherever I go. You'll think I'm a mad fellow. What am I trying to do? Is it just to carry bricks and perform the ritual everywhere I go? That's not the point. In fact, it's a great Vyasa who impregnated the meaning, a new meaning to the ritual in the Gita. Before Vyasa, so there's a pre-Vyasa period, the post-Vyasa period. Pre-Vyasa, during the Vedic times, it was more ritual. Though there is a philosophical significance there, but it took a greater precedence after Vyasa gave a new meaning, how to convert action into worship. So perhaps you can look at it that way. Now, what is the jnana kanda of the fire ritual, of the actual kund? So what does the kund symbolize? The kund is where you invoke that flame, right? Kund symbolizes, what does kund symbolize? Not difficult to answer. The kund symbolizes the field of activity that you get into day in and day out. My field of activity is this, to spread this wisdom. So whatever I do, whether it be the administrative work, whether I meet people or teach this knowledge or study or do my sadhana, the objective is that this wisdom should reach as many people as possible. How to make this vehicle more efficient to reach this knowledge to the larger masses, the larger people. That doesn't mean, oh, it's number driven. It is not number driven. It is driven to serve people. We're not behind that number game. It is quality over quantity. I remember his words which keep ringing in my mind. My guru told me the day I left the ashram, now 30 years ago, I left the ashram. He said that you want numbers, you compromise on the quality. You hold on to the quality, you will get numbers slowly, but don't compromise on the essence of the teachings. I've been true to that philosophy. Where there is quality, there is no quantity. And where there are numbers, invariably quality drops. Find out. It's applicable every walk of life. In any walk of life. Even in animal kingdom you find. The king of the jungle you'll find proportionate. How many lions you find in, how many tigers you find in jungle compared to the herbivores? There'll be 1,000 deer. For them, you'll find 3 tigers. The proportion, it's never other way around. You imagine there are 500 tigers, only 50 deer or 50 herbivores. You find there's a mismatch. Even the birds, you find there'll be hundreds of pigeons, but you will find a lone eagle. Yes, SR?
Guruji, just a small example on this. Quality goes up when the quantity is been remained constant. Is the latest example of the Boeing, where the midair there was one of the windows blown up in one of the in USA. So the root cause analysis is being studied, saying that the CEO was pushing more on the numbers. So quality and safety has taken a backseat. So that simple logic. Had you hold on the numbers, most probably there could be quality might have been improved. Definitely the one of the root cause of that.
It's applicable, isn't it? It's very much applicable. We need to have that perspective. In fact, I would go to the extent, I'm not in a different spiritual angle. I'm saying where numbers flock, beware of going. If everybody is flocking there, something is not right. Watch out. Where there are no numbers, you should go. The path not taken, the road not taken. The masses run, the ignoramuses go there. But the real wise people, they don't rush there. Now, again, this is not being dismissive. I'm just being factual. You should not develop a Vijayagupsa to what I'm saying. You may have a Vijayagupsa to what I'm saying. That's your problem, not my problem. Oh, I don't like the tone with which he talks. That is your problem. I don't like what he's saying. That is your problem, not my problem. If truth is bitter, so be it. Deal with it. You don't want it, choice is yours. But truth shall remain. It is quality over quantity. Where numbers flock, there is no quality. Any aspect of life, we are talking of engineering. Look at automobile engineering. Any aspect of life, you find it. In a society, how many billionaires are there? In a country, how many billionaires? The middle class people are plenty. The higher middle class, again, it's a pyramid, isn't it? Everything. And the lower class people is at the base. I'm just being factual. I'm not saying anything great about it. There's an observation. In any university you go, the various branches, right? You find there is arts, there is science, there is mathematics, and then there is philosophy. The number of enrollments you find for arts, 2,000 people have enrolled for arts in a college or university. For science, 300 have enrolled. For PhD in mathematics, 50 have enrolled. In philosophy, 20 people have enrolled. Why is it philosophy gets only 20 people enrollment, whereas for arts you find 2,000 people? Amitama, you are in the field of education. Very soon you will get into a greater role of a university. So I could ask none better than you. Please shed some light on this.
Hello, Guruji. No economic value.
Don't. Please, you in the university, don't think of economy, please.
Generally, that's what dictates the subscription.
No,
what will happen after that? After I acquire that qualification, how do I monetize it? How do they call it return on investment, right? So, yeah.
Nowadays, I'm using return on investment when, people are getting married, Imagine my son is getting married. I call return ROI, return on investment. I'm getting all what I've invested, bringing up this fellow, so the dowry and that and this. So education also become ROI, is it?
Yeah, education for the sake of education and, the upliftment of the human condition, I think is a thing of the past.
Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about why people, apart from what you said, it is perhaps a sad reality. Uh, uh, why is it that way? Why 2,000 people? It's just arbitrary numbers. The proportion is so contrasting. Imagine if I tell you there is a huge scope for philosophy. Would you enroll? You would not.
Yeah.
It's like asking a question. There is a job opening in a company, various roles, right? From clerks to managers to directors to a CEO. It's like somebody comes and asks you, I'm a little confused. There are 4 openings. Where do I apply the role? If somebody has a doubt, where do I apply for a job? What would you say? What would you say?
Follow your.
Obviously, if you have a doubt whether to, no, sir, I have doubt in 2 categories. Am I to apply for a CEO role or am I to apply for a clerical role? Would you say? If the fact that the doubt arrives, you have to apply for a clerical role. Correct, Hariji? A fellow who is fit for the CEO role, he'll not have a doubt. Where is the doubt? The doubt doesn't arise. The question doesn't arise. Exactly the same thing. Arjuna was asked a question in the Gita 12th chapter. He asked Krishna, am I to worship God with a form or without a form? Gayatri, what was the answer Lord gave?
Whichever path your Swadharma feels like, if you are intellectual.
Ninga vera. He's asking a question to choose between. Give me clearly. Ekavada. One word answer, he says. Give me either this or that. He doesn't give a lecture of Swadharma, Paradharma and all. Ninga vera. Asking, am I to worship God with a form or without a form? Tell me one answer. No Swadharma business here.
For you, with form.
Correct. He says, obviously with a form, he said. When he said with a form, this is people have taken out of context and say, see, Lord himself says, you must worship me with a form. Therefore, put a banner, a picture, an idol of me and start worshipping. Arey, yeah, come on. Don't take that statement out of context. It's not generalization. What he meant is like you telling a fellow, am I to apply for a CEO job or a clerical job? Obviously a clerical job. The fact that you have a doubt, you are unfit for a CEO. Like that, a fellow who's fit to recognize God as a formless reality, he will not want to confine it to a form. Question tells you where you belong, what caliber you are. And it's not demeaning, it is just being factual. This often could be misunderstood. Get to the spirit, don't get carried away by the words. So the yajna, the ritual, as we said, there's a karma kanda and the jnana kanda. The jnana kanda aspect, the kund is the field of activity. Every field that you are in, any activity you perform is the field. And any yajna, that 2 fundamental aspects, what you offer and then what is the outcome. So when you offer in the ritual, you offer ghee, grains, fruits, whatever you offer. Once you offer that, what happens? The flame sustains or the flame shoots up. The flame gets kindled. Similarly, in any yajna, the jnana kanda offering is you offer your talents. You offer your abilities. You have a talent. That is your swadharma. I don't know, that gentleman is there. The other day, a gentleman walked in. He saw the Wisdom Foundation board of the institute and he walked in. He was a corporate man. He said, I am I'm looking forward. I have such urge. I want to serve. I think I've came to the right place. And I asked him, and I told him, there are no administrators here. Everything is administered, managed by the volunteers, by the sevaks. So what talent you have, which you think you can pour into this flame of the organization? Find out. You come and find out what you have and what the organization needs so that you can serve. You can't bring what you don't have. What you have with you is your talent. What you have is your ability. So bring that. And how do you do? With the ability to do as an offering. And when you do offer, what happens? The flame shoots. And when the flame shoots, what is burnt? Obviously, the fuel is burnt. What is the fuel here? The fuel here is the desires and the vasanas. So when you perform yajna, your selfish ego and your selfishness gets burnt by the fire of wisdom. When I invoke that wisdom, my selfish ego and the selfish desires get burnt and consumed. And once the ritual is performed, it's finished, you smear your head with the prasad. What is the prasad you get? Is the ashes. The ashes itself is the prasad. So what do? Take the ash and smear on your forehead in 3 stripes, vertical or horizontal, that your attachment. Whichever way you put the stripe, that is your sorry, sir, that is my comfort zone. You do what you want. You vertical you stripe or horizontal stripe, because there's a huge lobbying going on. Which stripe is better? You hold on to your stripe you belong to. In fact, there are people who don't come to me because I say they think I belong to one stripe. I don't put either stripe. Why are you thinking I belong to any stripe? Huh? And they are very lovingly, they say, Guruji, I don't want to come to the classes because you teach this. I said, when am I started teaching that? That is his perception. Because you are in a room and locked up, you think I am also locked up. I am liberated. I am outside. You are in a house. You are locked up in your house. You think I am also locked up. I am free to roam outside. But very sweetly he said, I'm not offended by that. So when you put 3 stripes, what do you mean? I've transcended the sattva, rajas, tamas. I've gone beyond the guna, guna atita. I've gone beyond the bondage of the temperaments of sattva, the triangle, the prism of sattva, rajas, tamas. I'm caught up in the prism. So when the light passes through the prism, there is that expression of light. So when the consciousness passes through the prism of sattva, rajas, tamas, Vasantama, what happens?
You attain a clearer knowledge.
Sorry, Ma, can you come again, please?
You get 1 second, Guruji, there's being echo. I just come. Thank you. I think we become more clearer in our knowledge, and we become unselfish.
No. You don't get the question. What's the question?
What happens when you transcend sattva, rajas, and tamas?
No, that's not the question. The question is, when light passes through the prism, you get the vibrioric expression of light. Isn't it? Similarly, when the consciousness passes through the prism of the sattva, rajas, tamas, what does it create? See, the question came about when I smear my forehead with the 3 stripes of the ashes, I'm announcing to the world that I've transcended the bondage or limitation of the gunas, right? I've gone beyond that. And you go to the temple to announce that I've attained moksha. So visiting the temple is suggestion that I've become one with the self.
Liberated from all the conditionings
of the gunas. That is what smearing your forehead and visiting a temple announces. But the question is, when the consciousness functions through the prism of sattva, rajas, tamas, what does it create? Why? I thought the question is very simple. I hope I'm not complicating it. What comes out of it? Ma, Gayatri Ma, you must help me with this. Something is not right. So I want to draw the board. Even
No, Guruji, I
last
think
week
you
we had
shouldn't.
issues.
No, I think Guruji, you're logging in with the video also. Earlier, you used to just log in without that video.
And my video is off on the
Board.
on the board. The video is off. What you see me is this video, no, the straight
Yes,
video.
but in this wisdom also earlier.
I want a plain board. These people are complicating the board for me. Never mind. We will have to figure that out, please. I think I've had issues last satsang as well. I want some technical help there. I don't know what to do with it. Now, what I'm trying to get to, Vasantama, the prism of sattva, rajas, tamas. Okay, if I were to talk about you, if I say you have 50% sattva, 30% rajas, 20% tamas. Okay, arbitrary, if that's your composition. The Atman is within you, right? When the Atman functions through the sattva, rajas, tamas, it brings about the jiva, it creates the individuality. In this case, Vasanta is the individual. Vasanta is there. One Vasanta is born because the self expresses to the prism of the gunas. Imagine when does the prism cease to exist? When there is no rajas and tamas, only sattva. Imagine you have reached a state where you have reached 99.99% sattva. In fact, as you know, pure 100% sattva can't exist, isn't it? It has to have you transcend it. So when you transcend the gunas, what happens to the prism?
It's non-existent.
It ceases to exist. When there is no prism, what happens? Pure consciousness remains as pure consciousness. Pure consciousness doesn't express as the individual ego, which is Vasanta. Vasantama doesn't come. Where is individual? Individual comes because of the prism of the sattva, rajas, tamas. The Vibgoric colors come when the white light passes through the prism. Remove the white light, remove the prism, the white light remains as a pure white light. So Vasanta is the conditioned consciousness. Vasanta individuality is conditioned consciousness.
It's pure consciousness.
And then there's a pure consciousness. So to get the equation, PC, which is a pure consciousness, plus sattva, rajas, tamas equals CC, conditioned consciousness. In brackets, you can say the jiva or the individuality. Okay, man. Let me write it so that you all can capture it. So this is the equation. The pure consciousness plus the gunas, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas, equals the conditioned consciousness. And the conditioned consciousness is nothing but the individuality, which is the jiva, which is the ego, which I am. I am the ego. The ego I am is the conditioned consciousness. So when you reach the highest state, you transcend the prism. There's no more individuality. The gunas have dropped off. Gunatita. Now, another important element in the Jnana Kanda of the fire ritual is how the very fire is invoked. In the olden days, how was the fire invoked? They used to use 2 pieces of wood. When you rub the 2 pieces of wood, you invoke fire. So where is fire? In the wood. What is the fuel? The very wood itself. Isn't it amazing that fuel and fire are existing in the very same wood? Similarly, the spirit and matter are in that very individual. Spirit is in you, the matter is in you. When you put yourself through the process of converting action into worship, the fuel, which is the desires and the vasanas, get burnt away, and what is left is that pure, unconditioned spirit, which is the consciousness. But you can only get to that point is to start the process of invoking fire is through getting into the spirit of yajna, which is what is that friction. So when you churn your inner personality, the friction here refers to when you churn your inner personality, when you sit, when pratasmarami, the early morning, you get up and you churn your personality. When you question your non-self, when you negate your non-self and assert the real self, what happens? The fire in you gets ignited, the wisdom in you gets inflamed, and the avidya and the ignorance in you in the form of your vasanas and desires gets consumed and burnt away. And what is left ultimately is that realization of yourself. So they are poles apart. What brick to use, what size of the brick, what mantra has to be chanted, what must be the color of the brick, which height must be performed, what must be done is the karma kanda. The jnana kanda is how do you convert every action into worship, invoke the self in you and realize the self. So you got to find out whether you're fit for karma kanda or fit for jnana kanda. What I am giving you is only jnana kanda. I am not giving you karma kanda. You will have to go to some other guru who will give you karma kanda. To the extent your karma kanda, you will do that. To the extent you're ritual oriented, you will go there. That's your requirement. Fit into your requirements. I am no one to stop you. I am no one to tell what you're doing is wrong. It's not my business. But it's for you to understand what you're doing. And that's where perhaps the jnanam will help you to understand yourself and give in to your requirement. I'm not saying anything wrong in doing karma kanda, because that's a different constitution. My constitution doesn't necessitate it. It never required. Right from the beginning, my personality did not demand or doesn't require. So it's not my arrogance when I say something. I don't need it. It's my constitution. You ask me why you don't need it. That's how I'm made. My spiritual constitution is like that. I'm more intellectual than devotional. It's not. I'm not ritualistic oriented. That is my swadharma, that is my personality. So you should not compare yourself with anybody. But I am doing something which fits into my spiritual requirement. I shouldn't do just because everybody is doing. Then I would not do justice to my requirement. So you should understand what extent is karma, what extent is jnana, and then give into it. That's when perhaps there will be a greater alignment of the practices to your requirements. It's like make to fit. When you stitch garments, you make it to stitch to your requirement. When you don't do that, I might scare you away, like the scarecrow. Isn't it, Amitama, the scarecrow? Everything is loose and baggy. I can't be a scarecrow. I must be presentable too. So don't be a spiritual scarecrow. Coming up with new terminologies today. Don't use out of context. I appeal. But at least we, thanks to the context and the mantra, we have a glimpse of the two worlds of the Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. And if you go to the Vedic studies, actually the Jnana Kanda denounces the Karma Kanda, which we're not doing it, but it denounces. It says those are the inferior practices, and it says these are the superior practices. All in line, Amitama?
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
Right. Certainly, I would say this is a lot of food for thought. I have not decoded the Jnana Kanda of the fire ritual. Perhaps we would have done earlier section. I don't know whether Gayatrima, did you share the, we mentioned of sharing the sections from the 4th chapter. Was that shared
Yes.
with the audiences?
Yes, Guruji, it was shared in the satsang group.
Okay. I am not a part of satsang, I'm in Dussang now. So I don't know what is shared. All right. So, as I've said, Nachiketa repeats what was explained by the Lord, and the Guru is so pleased that this young boy has grasped, has received everything so beautifully. So he gives the next mantra 2 additional boons, for which you got to come back next week to hear what the boons are. We shall continue. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.